What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today we are talking about Arman Tsarukyan as we are on the verge of UFC 311 Los Angeles, one of maybe the greatest card of all time, depending on how everything transpires. But at least in terms of anticipation, names on the card, this is definitely already up there as one of the most anticipated events of all time. We got a lot of history on the line. And people are, of course, talking about Islam and Umar having this opportunity to be, I think, for the first time in the history of the UFC, defending or champions of two different weight classes that are cousins. This is insane. This is historic times. But I want to talk about somebody who maybe isn't getting all the hype or as much hype as the Russian fighters, the Nurmagomedovs. I sometimes trip up. I know how to pronounce the name, but when I'm recording, sometimes I screw it up. Hope I got that right, roughly. Anyways, Nurmagomedovs. We are going to talk about Arman Tsarukyan, and if he's flown under the radar for you, check out his interviews. This guy is awesome and amazing, man. And if he was fighting anybody other than Islam, I think I'd be rooting for him. I kind of am rooting for him, but at the end of the day, I want to see Islam win just because I love to see legacy. I love to see titles get broken. He will be the longest defending lightweight in the history of the UFC if Islam wins. He's got the legacy of Khabib and that entire team. So that's very exciting. I want to see history made, man. So other than that, I would love to see Arman Tsarukyan win, but at least let me tell you why I think Arman Tsarukyan is amazing. And this goes back to a lot of the reasons that I mentioned repeatedly in our videos of why certain fighters are loved and why others are not. So check this out. Number one, probably one of the most important reasons, maybe as important as his fighting ability, I don't know, but he is genuine. If you listen to him in interviews and you hear about his background, his upbringing, all these things, he is himself through and through. And he also doesn't mess around. He is a guy, he grew up fighting, having street fights, having fights as a hockey player growing up. And that's just, he just has that mentality. He's not putting on a front. He's not fake. He's just pure and real. Now, if you remember, he had a beef with King, his original name, I can't, Bobby Green, King Green. He had a legitimate beef with him at one point. If you remember that back and forth, we all love King Green, and he's such a fun and flashy fighter. But they had a beef back and forth. I think he had talked some smack about Arman and his fighting style. This was before Arman became as prevalent as he is now. And Arman, man, he went off and talked about how he just wanted to destroy Bobby Green. And I think there was a fight where there was a late stoppage where King Green had a late stoppage, and Arman was just ruthless in that description, talking about him. Like, he genuinely does not like that guy. And it wasn't an act. It wasn't forced. It wasn't to get pressed. He was just talking about it straight up. You remember also the other incident where a fan was harassing Arman as he's on the walkout. He's not trying to get press for his outburst. Actually, he almost got sued for that outburst. But you just saw him go into attack mode because he's got the fighter mentality. That's who he is through and through. And I think you have to respect him for that. And it's why more fans and more people are now gravitating towards him. Also, check out the interview he did with the Pound for Pound podcast. He also did an interview with the Nelk Boys that dropped today, which is really great. You get to see his personality, and he's awesome. So let's move on to topic number two. He's driven by passion. Now, this is one of the most amazing things about Arman Tsarukyan. You hear this phrase repeated over and over, and it drives me absolutely crazy because it's such a hackneyed phrase, and I don't even think it's true. Maybe for some people, but not for truly passionate people. And the phrase is, it's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. and get out there and train when you're sleeping in silk sheets. Can't remember, some boxer said it back in the day, talking about now reaching a pinnacle of point of success and no longer having the work ethic in you because you're apparently in comfort, you're well off, whatever. I've always thought that this was such a stupid thing. I don't believe it for a second. Maybe there's certain people that take their foot off the gas when they reach a certain position or whatever. I do think, though, that those people are going to have problems eventually. I think you got to find something else. Now, if you look at really, really passionate people on the planet, who they're not starting a business, selling it, and going to chill. It's not about that. It's about then they want to start another company. They become what is known as a serial entrepreneur. They like challenge, and that's what keeps them wanting to do more. It's not necessarily about the financial gain, and oftentimes it's not after a certain point, but it's about setting up challenges and conquering them. And so many people, I think, don't have perspective on what that's really all about. And so they repeat this stupid phrase. Marvin Hagler, I think that's the boxer who said this long ago. And you want to think that, fine, I've just disagreed with it from the get-go. I've built, with a lot of work and a lot of time, a business myself. And just because I've reached a certain point in the growth of this business or financially doesn't mean I don't want to. I still work. Actually, in a lot of cases, I work even more than I used to, because working is fun, especially when it's driven by passion. And this is what Arman Tsarukyan talks about, how he's passionate and how he wants to build legacy, because he comes, and he's talked about this, not in a braggadocious way, but he's just saying this is the truth. He comes from a well-to-do family. He's already financially set. He's not doing this, at least at this point, for any monetary gain or monetary benefit in particular. He just loves to fight. He said in the interview on the Nelk Boys that he never wanted to work. So he loved sports, he loved to fight, and he developed this tremendous skill set within this field. And now look where he's at. He's trying to go for a belt. He might be a reigning champion after this Saturday. He does say after this fight, he wants to focus on business. He wants to take money fights, and he wants to build additional wealth and financial stability, I suppose, for himself, even though it seems like his father has a construction business and they're well off. But he says after that, but right now his main focus is passion. And a lot of people said, well, I don't think he's as hungry as Islam because he's financially set. And I wanted to say this myself at the time when the statement was made, but I love that Arman said it himself. No, it's not. It doesn't have to be about money. It's about passion for the sport. It's just about wanting to achieve legacy. That can be just as much as a driver, if not more so in a lot of cases. And I think this says something very special about him, that he's going into this sport where so many people say, no, you're just doing it for the money. As soon as you get the money, get out. No, that's not his perspective. Maybe that makes him more dangerous. I guess we'll see on Saturday how everything unfolds. But I love that. And I love that message that at the core of everything, it's his passion for the sport, with or without the financial incentives. Super cool. And I think that's something to get behind for sure. Number 3, he's a great fighter. If you watch his fights, not only is he an amazingly talented fighter, obviously, but his fighting style is fun. He's got tremendous kicks, great scrambles. Look back at the Charles Oliveira fight. Look at the dangerous positions Charles Oliveira had him in. I think 2 times he had him in really bad guillotines. The first one in particular was very, very dangerous. You saw, but he did not get compromised emotionally, mentally. He stayed calm. While he was getting choked, he was trying to reposition his leg and get a better position. Eventually got out of the guillotine and stuck in there. And Charles Oliveira, we saw what he did to Michael Chandler. It was almost complete domination for 5 rounds, with the exception of the fouls and so on and so forth. Charles Oliveira is insanely good, and Arman hung in there and beat him. Tremendous fighter. And he had a very close fight on short notice back in the day against Islam. So obviously we have to get behind him on that. Not only is he a great fighter, but his fighting style is quite fun, I think. Last but not least, he wants to dominate. And again, this goes back to him having a very respectable mindset and really going for greatness. And we can contrast that with somebody like Colby Covington, who's kind of going out there and just trying to get easy fights, trying to talk a lot of smack, be insincere, not be genuine, right? These are traits that I think for me and a lot of people, it turns the fan base off. Arman's not like that, because you know who he says he wants to fight after Islam? He wants to fight Charles again. And that was such a difficult fight. And again, we know how skilled Charles is. Why? Because he says people say that was a close fight. So he wants to go out there and dominate and show people that he can win a decisive victory against Charles Oliveira. And you got to respect that. And he's not just saying it for the sake of saying it, for winning over the fan base. He's real. He's sincere. At least I think he is. That's it. Just want to put this out there as we're coming up to UFC 311. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more from us, make sure to click subscribe and catch us every Monday and Friday for our weekly show. Me and Justin Guitar Hero James. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.